What?
6 black SUVs, 1 street vendor, and a market full of people who had no idea what was about to happen. The 6 black SUVs rolled into the Jigalchi market district at exactly 8:47 in the morning.
Good morning,
The
Sewa.
engines were so quiet, they almost whispered. But 6 vehicles moving in formation through a narrow Busan street market don't whisper. They scream. Every vendor stopped what they were doing. Every customer froze mid-transaction. A grandmother selling dried anchovies dropped her plastic bag and just stared. The convoy stopped, right in front of Adesewa's Tteok stall. She was mid-pour, warm, sweet rice batter dripping into a mold. Her 4-year-old daughter Yejide was sitting on an overturned crate behind the cart, swinging her little legs and humming a song she'd learned at daycare. Sewa looked up. The first door opened, then the second, then the third. Men in dark suits stepped out. 8 of them. They didn't speak. They formed a line, and they waited. The last door opened, and the man who stepped out made Sewa's hand stop mid-air. The batter dripped onto the counter. She knew that face. She knew those eyes. But the suit, the convoy, the men standing like soldiers around him, that she did not know. "Good morning, Sewa," he said. His voice was the same, quiet, warm, like he was ordering his usual Tteok. But everything else about this moment was completely different. And every single person in that market was watching. He showed up on a Tuesday, plain clothes, no name, and he kept coming back. 3 months before the convoy, Adesewa's life was simple. Wake up at 4, prep the batter, load the cart, push it 6 blocks to her spot near the Jigalchi fish market entrance, set up before the morning rush, sell Tteok until 2 in the afternoon, pick up Yejide from daycare, go home, count the money, pay the bills, sleep, repeat. She had been doing this for 2 years. She came to Busan from Seoul after her marriage fell apart. Her ex-husband, a Korean man named Jae-won, had seemed like a good man until he wasn't. When the drinking started, the kindness stopped. When she told him she was pregnant, he told her to leave. So she did. She left Seoul with 1 suitcase, a baby in her belly, and the recipe for Tteok that her Korean mother-in-law had taught her before everything went bad. That old woman had loved Sewa. She was the only one in that family who did. And the recipe she passed down was the only good thing that survived the marriage. Sewa landed in Busan because it was far enough from Seoul to feel like a new country. She didn't know anyone. She didn't have a plan. She just had her hands and her stubborn refusal to ask anyone for help. The Tteok stall started on a folding table outside her tiny apartment. Within 6 months, she had regulars. Within a year, she had a proper cart. Within 2 years, people walked 20 minutes out of their way for her Tteok. The secret was the fusion. Traditional Korean rice cake technique with West African spice blends her grandmother had taught her back in Accra. Ginger and sesame, plantain and red bean. Suya spice dusted on sweet rice rolls. Nobody in Busan had ever tasted anything like it. He showed up on a Tuesday. Plain gray jacket, black cap pulled low, simple dark pants. He looked like every other working man in the market district. Nothing about him stood out. He stood behind 2 other customers and waited his turn. When he reached the front, he looked at the menu board she'd written in Korean and English. "What do you recommend?" he asked. His voice was quiet, not shy, just controlled, like a man who chose his words carefully. "The suya rice roll," Sewa said. "It's my best seller. Sweet rice with a West African spice blend. You won't find it anywhere else in Korea." He nodded. "1, please." She handed it to him. He paid exactly. No tip, no small talk. He walked away. But he came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. By the 2nd week, Sewa started preparing his order before he arrived. 1 suya rice roll, sometimes 2. He always came at 7:15. He always paid exactly. He never said more than a few words. On the 9th day, Yejide broke the silence. The little girl was sitting on her crate as usual, and when the quiet man approached, she held out a piece of tteok she'd been nibbling on. "You want some?" Yejide said in her mixed Korean English. "Mommy's tteok makes people smile. You don't smile." Sewa almost dropped her ladle. "Yejide, don't bother the customer." But the man stopped. He looked down at the little girl, and for the first time, something shifted in his face. "You're right," he said softly. "I don't smile enough." He took the piece from her tiny hand. He ate it, and then he smiled. Small, but real. "Thank you," he said to Yejide. Then he looked at Sewa. "She's wonderful." "She's trouble," Sewa said, but she was smiling too. "My name is Jin," he said. "Sewa," she replied. He nodded once, then he left. But from that day on, he talked. A little more each morning. About the weather, about the market, about which flavors were new this week. He asked about her recipes the way someone asks about something they genuinely respect. Not small talk, real curiosity. He never asked where she was from. He never asked why a Ghanaian woman was selling Tteok in Busan. He never asked about Yejide's father. He just showed up, ordered, talked, listened, left. Sewa didn't know it yet, but those 17 minutes every morning were becoming the best part of her day. She stepped out of the car like she owned the street. She almost ruined everything. It was a Thursday afternoon. Market was winding down. Sewa was cleaning her cart and Yejide was drawing with chalk on the pavement when a black Mercedes pulled up at the curb. The door opened and a woman stepped out. She was tall, sharp features, expensive navy suit, hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She carried herself like the ground should be grateful she was walking on it. Monica Hayes. She wasn't here for Tteok. Monica had just finished a meeting at the Hanul Group satellite office 4 blocks away. Her driver had taken a wrong turn through the market district, and when Monica saw the street stalls and the fish vendors and the chaos of a working-class Busan market, her face twisted like she'd smelled something rotten. "Drive through faster," she told her driver. But traffic had locked up. A delivery truck was blocking the narrow lane. Monica stepped out of the car to make a phone call. She paced back and forth on the sidewalk, heels clicking, talking loudly in English about quarterly projections and merger timelines. Yejide, curious as always, wandered over. "Hi," the little girl said, looking up at Monica. "Do you want Tteok? My mommy makes the best ones." Monica looked down at the child like she was looking at a stain on her shoe. "Go away," Monica said flatly. "I'm on a call." Yejide didn't move. "But it's really good. It has special spice from—" "I said go away." Monica's voice was sharp now, and loud enough that Sewa heard it from the cart. Sewa wiped her hands and walked over quickly. "Yejide, come here, baby." She scooped up her daughter and looked at Monica. "I'm sorry if she bothered you. She's just friendly." Monica looked Sewa up and down. The flour-dusted apron, the worn sneakers, the cart with handwritten signs. "Control your child," Monica said. "Some of us are doing important work." Sewa felt the heat rise in her chest, but she held it. Oh, she'd learned a long time ago that some battles aren't worth the energy. "She's 4, Sewa said calmly. "She offered you food. That's not something that needs controlling." Monica scoffed. "Street food from a street cart in a street market. I'll pass." She looked at the stall. "You know, in America, health inspectors would shut something like this down in an hour." Sewa's jaw tightened. "Have a nice day," Sewa said. She turned and walked back to her cart, holding Yejide close. Monica got back in her car, and the Mercedes pulled away. Yejide looked up at her mother. "Mommy, why was that lady mean?" Sewa kissed her daughter's forehead. "Some people carry so much weight inside that they drop it on everyone around them. It's not about us, baby. It's never about us." What Sewa didn't know was that someone had seen the entire exchange. Across the street, sitting on a bench with a half-eaten suya rice roll in his hand, Jin watched Monica's car disappear around the corner. His jaw was tight. His eyes were hard. He pulled out his phone and made one call. "Find out who that woman was, the one in the black Mercedes, navy suit, American. I want her name, her title, and where she works by tonight." He hung up, and for the first time since Sewa had known him, Jin didn't look calm at all. Sewa didn't know it yet, but someone was coming for her stall. And someone else was coming for them. If you're still with me right now, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because what happens next in this story, you're not ready. Trust me, you're not ready. The following Monday, Sewa arrived at her spot at 5:30 in the morning to find a notice taped to the wall behind her usual setup area. Non-market stall permit review, notice of violation. The notice said her food cart operating permit was under review due to a complaint filed about unsanitary food preparation and unlicensed foreign food products. She had 7 days to appear before the district market board, or her permit would be revoked. Sewa read the notice 3 times. She had every permit, every license. She'd filed every piece of paperwork herself because she couldn't afford a lawyer. And she'd passed every health inspection for 2 straight years. Her stall was cleaner than half the restaurants in the district. This wasn't a real violation. This was someone with power pulling strings. She thought about the woman in the navy suit, the way she'd looked at the cart, the contempt in her eyes. But no, that was crazy. A random woman on the street wouldn't go through the trouble of filing a complaint against a Tteok vendor. Would she? Sewa set up her cart anyway. And she worked the morning rush like nothing was wrong, but her hands were shaking the whole time. Jin noticed. "What happened?" he asked when he arrived at 7:15. "Nothing," Sewa said. "Just a bad morning." He didn't push, but he stood there a little longer than usual. And before he left, he said something he'd never said before. "Sewa, if you ever need help, with anything, you can ask me." She looked at him. This quiet man in his plain jacket who'd been buying Tteok from her for 3 months. What could he possibly help with? "I appreciate that, Jin, but I handle my own problems." He nodded. "I know you do. That's what I respect about you." He left. That evening, Sewa sat in her tiny apartment with the violation notice on the kitchen table and Yejidi asleep on the couch. She stared at it until the words blurred. If she lost this permit, she lost everything. There was no backup plan. There was no savings account. There was no family to call. This cart was the only thing standing between her daughter and the street. She pressed her palms against her eyes and breathed. "I didn't come this far to lose it all over a lie," she whispered. What she didn't know was that 3 miles away, in the top floor office of a building that overlooked all of Busan's harbor, a man in a plain gray jacket was sitting behind a desk that cost more than Sewa's entire apartment. Our Park Sung-jin, Jin, was reading a file. Monica Hayes, Senior Vice President, Global Operations, Hanel Group, American Division, relocated to Busan for the Pacific Rim merger. His company, his employee. He turned to the second page. Complaint filed with Busan Saha District Market Board. Monday, 7 a.m. Filed by Corporate Affairs Office, Hanul Group Busan. Authorized by Monica Hayes, SVP. Jin closed the file. He sat in silence for a long time. Then he picked up his phone. "Schedule a full company meeting for Friday. Every department head, every VP, every director, no exceptions." "Sir, what's the agenda?" "Character." "I'm sorry, sir. The agenda is character. That's all they need to know." She walked in alone. She was about to walk out with nothing, until the door opened one more time. Thursday morning. Busan Saha District Market Board Office. A gray government building that smelled like old paper and floor cleaner. Sewa sat in a plastic chair in the hallway, holding a folder with every permit, every license, every inspection report she'd ever received. Yejide was at daycare. Sewa had told her everything was fine. Mommy just had a meeting. She was wearing her cleanest clothes. A simple black blouse and dark pants. No flower, no apron. She'd even ironed her shirt twice. The hearing room had 3 board members behind a long table. 2 men, 1 woman. They looked bored before she even sat down. "Ms. Adesewa Okonkwo," the woman said. "Yes, ma'am." You've been notified of a complaint regarding your food preparation cart operating in the Jigalchi Market District. The complaint alleges unsanitary food preparation practices and the use of unlicensed foreign food ingredients. How do you respond? Sewa opened her folder. I have my original permit, my renewal from 6 months ago, 3 consecutive health inspection reports, all passed with perfect scores, a list of every ingredient I use, us all sourced from licensed Korean distributors, and receipts for my African spice imports, which are cleared through customs with proper food-grade documentation. She laid everything on the table. The board members looked at each other. Ms. Okonkwo, the complaint was filed by a corporate affairs office. They've requested your permit be suspended pending a full investigation. An investigation into what? Sewa's voice was steady, but her hands were gripping the folder under the table. Everything is in front of you. I've never had a single violation, not one. We understand, but the complaint comes from a significant corporate entity and we have to... The door opened. Everyone turned. A man walked in. Plain gray jacket, black cap, simple dark pants. Jin. Excuse me, the woman board member said. This is a closed hearing. Who are you? Jin walked to the front of the room. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He moved like a man who had never once in his life been asked to leave a room. My name is Park Sung-jin, he said. The room didn't react. The name meant nothing to them. I'm the chairman and CEO of Hanul Group. The room reacted now. The woman board member sat up straight. One of the men knocked his pen off the table. The other one just stared. The complaint against Ms. Okonkwo's stall was filed by an employee of my company without my knowledge or authorization. I'm here to formally withdraw that complaint, effective immediately. He placed a single sheet of paper on the table. Company letterhead. His signature. Official withdrawal. Furthermore, Jin continued, I've personally visited Ms. Okonkwo's food stall on numerous occasions over the past 3 months. Her food preparation is impeccable. Her hygiene standards exceed most licensed restaurants in this district, and her product is exceptional. He looked at Sewa. She was staring at him. Her lips were slightly parted. Her folder was still clutched in her hands. Jin, the quiet man who bought Tteok every morning, the man in the plain jacket who smiled when her daughter offered him food, chairman and CEO of a $12 billion company. This hearing is over, he said to the board. Not rude, not aggressive, just final. The board members nodded quickly. Complaint withdrawn. Permit stands. Ms. Okonkwo, you're free to continue operations. Sewa stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak. The room felt tilted. Jin was already walking toward the door. Jin, she called out. He stopped. Is that even your real name? He turned. It's the name I wanted you to know me by. The rest of it. I didn't want it between us. Between us? Her voice cracked slightly. You've been buying Tteok from me for 3 months. You knew someone was trying to destroy my business and you just... I found out 4 days ago, and I handled it. You could have told me. You could have warned me. And you would have treated me differently. He paused. I didn't want that. Not from you. The hallway was silent. I need to go pick up my daughter, Sewa said quietly. I know. She walked past him. At the door, she stopped without turning around. Thank you for what you did in there. You would have won without me. Everything you needed was in that folder. Maybe, but it was nice not to fight alone for once. She left. Jin stood in the hallway for a long time after she was gone. She walked into that boardroom like she owned it. She was about to find out who really did. Friday, Hanul Group headquarters, 42nd floor, the executive boardroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Busan Harbor. Every department head, every vice president, every senior director, 43 people seated around a massive oval table. Monica Hayes sat near the head of the table. She was confident. She'd prepared a full presentation on the merger timeline. She assumed this meeting was about the Pacific Rim deal. She'd even worn her best suit, navy, same one she'd worn in the market. The door opened and Park Sung-jin walked in. Most people in this room had only met him once or twice. He rarely attended group meetings. He communicated through his executive team. Some of the newer employees had never seen his face at all. He was wearing a dark suit today. No gray jacket, no black cap. This was the other version of him, the one that ran a $12 billion empire. He didn't sit down. "Thank you all for being here," he said. "This won't take long." He pressed a button on the table console. A screen lit up on the wall behind him. The complaint document appeared. Monica's name, Monica's authorization, the market board filing against Sewa's Tteok stall. Monica's face changed. "4 days ago," Jin said, "a complaint was filed through our corporate affairs office against a street food vendor in the Saha district. A woman who sells Tteok from a cart, a single mother, an immigrant." He let that sit. The complaint alleged unsanitary conditions and unlicensed ingredients. Every word of it was a lie. The vendor has a perfect record, every permit, every inspection, spotless. He looked directly at Monica. "The complaint was filed because one of our senior leaders was inconvenienced by a 4-year-old girl who offered her a piece of rice cake." A murmur rippled through the room. Monica's mouth opened. "Mr. Park, I can explain—" "I'm not finished." The room went dead silent. "I built Hanul Group on a principle my mother taught me before she died. She sold kimbap from a cart in Gwangju. She fed me with those hands. She put me through school with that cart. Every one I have. Every building with our name on it. Every contract. Every deal. It all started with a woman and a food cart." His voice didn't waver, but the weight of it pressed down on everyone in the room. When you attack a street vendor because she's beneath you, you attack the foundation of everything I built. And I take that personally. Monica was white, not pale. White. The blood had left her face entirely. "Ms. Hayes, your employment with Hanul Group is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your access credentials have already been deactivated." "You can't," Monica started. "I can. I did. It's done." He turned to the room. "Let me be clear with everyone in this room. Your title does not make you important. Your character makes you important. The way you treat people who can do nothing for you tells me everything I need to know about who you are. And I am always watching." He turned off the screen. Meeting adjourned. He walked out. 42 people sat in absolute silence. Monica's hands were shaking. Her perfect presentation was still loaded on her laptop. The merger she'd spent months preparing for would continue without her. Security appeared at the door. "Ms. Hayes, please come with us." Her legs barely held her as she stood. She almost didn't open the stall that morning. She's glad she did. Saturday morning. Siwa almost didn't go to the market. She'd barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the hearing. Jin's face, his real name. The convoy of information that had crashed into her quiet little life. Park Sung-jin, Hanul Group, $12 billion. She'd looked it up, read the articles, seen the photos of him at corporate events in expensive suits, shaking hands with government officials and international business leaders. And then she thought about him standing at her cart in a gray jacket, eating a suya rice roll, smiling at her daughter. Same man. She almost didn't go to the market, but Yejide needed new shoes, and the rent was due Tuesday. So she loaded the cart and pushed it 6 blocks like she did every morning. She was setting up when she heard it. Engines, multiple, coming from the east end of the market street. She looked up. 6 black SUVs, moving in formation. Every vendor stopped. Every customer froze. The grandmother with the dried anchovies dropped her bag again. The convoy stopped right in front of her stall. We're back to where we started. The doors opened. Men in suits stepped out. 8 of them. They formed a line, and Jin stepped out of the last vehicle. Dark suit, no gray jacket, no cap. This was Park Sung-jin, but when he looked at her, his eyes were Jin's. "Good morning, Sewa." "Good morning, Jin." He walked toward her stall. Every eye in the market was on them. "You didn't come yesterday," he said. "I had a lot to think about." "I know. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." "Why didn't you?" He paused. He looked at the cart, at the handwritten menu. at the little crate where Yejide usually sat. My mother sold kimbap from a cart just like this. When she died, I was 14. I built everything after that. But I never forgot what her cart looked like, what her hands looked like after a full day of work, the way she smiled at customers even when she was exhausted. He looked back at Sewa. When I found your stall 3 months ago, I wasn't looking for anything. I was just walking through the market because I missed her. And then I tasted your Tteok, and I watched you work, and I watched your daughter hand out samples with that huge smile. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt like I was standing at my mother's cart again. Sewa's eyes were wet. I didn't tell you who I was because I didn't want you to see Park Sung-jin. I wanted you to see Jin. The man who shows up at 7:15. The man your daughter made smile. I see him, Sewa whispered. I always saw him. Then that's all I need. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. He placed it on the cart. What is this? Sewa asked. Open it. She did. Inside was a lease agreement. A commercial kitchen space in the Haeundae district. One of the most prestigious food corridors in Busan. I'm not offering you charity, Jin said quickly. I'm offering you a lease at fair market rate. What you do with the space is entirely up to you. Your recipes, your brand, your name on the door. I'm just giving you the room to grow, because what you've built from this cart deserves walls and a roof. Sewa stared at the document. And if I say no? Then I'll be here tomorrow morning at 7:15 for my suya rice roll. Nothing changes. She looked at him. This man who hid a $12 billion empire behind a gray jacket, just so a street vendor would treat him like a normal person. Yejide is going to lose her mind when she finds out the Tteok man has a convoy, Sewa said. Jin laughed. A real laugh. Full, warm. The kind of laugh that made 8 men in dark suits look at each other in confusion because they'd never heard it before. Is that a yes? He asked. It's a let me think about it over breakfast. You're buying. Deal. Some people walk into your life, others are sent. 6 months later, Sewa's kitchen opened in Haeundae. The sign above the door read, Sewa's, where soul meets Accra. Opening night, every seat was full. The menu was a love letter to 2 cultures that most people would never think to put together. Jollof arancini, Tteok with Shido glaze, suya spiced bibimbap, chin chin with matcha cream, and food critics came from Seoul, from Tokyo, from Singapore. They called it the most exciting fusion kitchen in Asia. Sewa cooked every dish herself. Her hands still looked like a street vendor's hands. Calloused, strong, beautiful. Yejide had her own little table near the kitchen. She still handed out samples to anyone who walked by. Some things don't change. Jin sat at a corner table. No bodyguards, no convoy. Just a man eating a suya rice roll and watching the woman he loved build something extraordinary. He'd never asked her to be anything other than what she was, and she'd never treated him as anything other than the quiet man at 7:15. That was the deal. That was always the deal. Somewhere across the Pacific, Monica Hayes was updating her resume for the 4th time. She'd been blacklisted from every major corporation in Asia. The story had leaked. Oh, senior VP fired for attacking street vendor. It went viral. Her LinkedIn was a graveyard. She'd tried to apologize. She'd sent letters to Hanul Group. Everyone was returned unopened. Some lessons come with a second chance, some don't. And Sewa? She never forgot what it felt like to stand in that hearing room alone with a folder full of proof and nobody who cared. She set up a fund through the restaurant. Legal aid for immigrant vendors facing bogus complaints. She called it the Yejide Fund, because her daughter was the one who started it all. A 4-year-old with a piece of Tteok and the courage to talk to a stranger. If Sewa had kept Yejide quiet that day, Jin would have stayed invisible. Monica would have stayed untouchable. And the cart would have stayed a cart. But she didn't. And Yejide didn't. And a piece of rice cake offered with small hands and a big heart set off a chain of events that nobody could have predicted. That's the thing about kindness. It looks small when you offer it, but you never know who's watching, and you never know what it unlocks. The proud always fall. The humble always rise. And fate never forgets a single thing. If you've ever been underestimated because of where you come from, what you look like, or what you do for a living, this story was for you. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because in these stories, the people who look down on others always end up looking up from the ground, and the ones who stay true to who they are, they always end up exactly where they're supposed to be. I'll see you in the next one.